wow. Okay. Hi. This is Three of Skeins and Crochet podcast number 100. Can you believe it? We can hardly believe it. But thank you for joining us. I am Lisa.
I'm Cryss.
And while I'm thinking about it, hey, like and subscribe, all right?
It does make our mom happy, but you don't have to say it so weird. Oh, please like and subscribe. Yeah. Like, what is that?
I don't know. That's how it came out today.
Okay.
It'll be different next week. It'll be. Hey, everybody. And the clown car revs up.
We have whips.
Oh, you know what? Before we get to the whips, let me mention what I'm wearing.
Oh, okay.
I am wearing my Dofuku jacket. I pulled it out of the closet for the first time in a minute today because it's just slightly cool downstairs in the house where we are right now. It is from the book Knit Kimono by Vicky Square, and I made it out of Rowan Classic Soft Luxe.
I'm not wearing anything at me.
Do you want to lead off today, or shall I?
Oh, I don't know. I guess I can. I don't know. I don't think if I worked on this since the last time I showed it. I don't remember where it was last time. But yeah, second part of the skirt, I have like a third of this panel left to go. But I got bored and I wasn't wearing it.
I could feel it. I could feel it. I was like, ooh, she's over this skirt.
No, it's like I want to see it come together, but the stitching is just monotonous.
It's too plain for you.
So, I mean, I like how it looks. It's just, you know, make it a mini skirt. Come on. You know what? I could make this a mini skirt, but I could definitely do a mini skirt version with front and back short and longer sides.
And a pip just happened.
Yeah, okay. But yeah, that's it.
See, that's how I was when I was just making fabric on the skirt. That's the part that I don't know how you do it with just one project, because at least I have the relief of switching off to something else. But when it turns into, okay, you just gotta make fabric.
Right, because you want to wear the thing. That's the part you keep in mind. Like, oh, if I don't finish it, I don't get to wear it. So,
all right. I tried that.
Knit up.
Knit up, my sisters.
But if I just work on it, I will probably finish it in the next week. So.
But that's the trick.
Yeah. I have to find something to watch while I'm stitching. Because bodies wasn't it.
Yeah. Okay, let me tell you about bodies. So we were watching bodies. Well, you would think that a show that its premise is...
It's on Netflix.
It's on Netflix. A crime has happened in 3 different time periods.
4.
The same... Oh, that's right, 4. The same body has shown up in 3 radically different time periods, and 3 before detectives are working to solve this crime from different angles. It was dull. It was simultaneously too much and too little, too fast and too slow. We watched episodes 1 through 4 and then jumped ahead.
Only 1 to 3.
Oh, that's right.
1 to 3, then we skipped to 7. We went skip to 8, then we went back to 7. And we needn't have.
Yeah, we could have just skipped ahead to 8.
Yeah.
But
I haven't watched 8 and I don't care to. I have no curiosity about how it all ends up.
Yeah. I was disappointed in bodies.
So I'll find something else to watch.
Indeed.
Oh, that's my whip update.
Okay.
Still stitching.
I got a whip update. I have been... Actually, I worked a little bit on my birthday sock, but I kind of got stopped in my tracks. So this is where I am right now. I'm a bit past the ankle of the first sock. And this is the contrast color on the toes and heels and the stripe. That is Red Red Rhine from Hope Made Yarn. And the main color is Persimmon Hill Yarn Club from the yarn store at Alma Park. The color is called Wild Horses. Absolutely adore it. But let me tell you what stopped me in my tracks. I'm not using a pattern for this sock. I'm just making my vanilla sock with a few decorative elements. So I decided to do, you know, my heels, toes, and cuffs in the contrast color, add a stripe, and then add a band of color work at the top of the sock. But I'm knitting away. I'm approaching the place where I'll probably have to start working on my color work band. And then I realized, you know, I don't know exactly where this is gonna go on the sock. You mean, in terms of rows, because I want the sock to be 7. Actually, you know what? Let me back up. This is my experimental working in metric project right now. So I want the sock to end up being 20 centimeters. You know, the leg. So today I had to sit down and really think about, okay, so how many rows is that total? So I calculated, I knew how many rows per centimeter I had, and I knew what my target was. So I calculated it out, and I was like, okay, I can start my color work band is going to be 32 rows. I just counted my rows. I have about 45 rows knitted already, and I will be continuing the leg to about 59 rows, and then I'll start the color work pattern. But that took a little mathing out. It did. It took a little bit of mathing out. The hard part, I think, working in metric is I am not metric at all. The only unit of measurement that I regularly do is 2 liters. That's it. That's my experience of metric. So although it does make the numbers easier, like I know I want my cuff to be 1.5 inches. That's 38 millimeters. The math on that is going to be much easier. And I did like having a smaller unit just to drop down to when I needed to measure something smaller than 1 centimeter. I thought that was pretty cool. And now that I know exactly how many rows I have to work with, I was able to just place everything. I know how wide my stripes are going to be. And I realized that's what stopped me in my tracks in my knitting, because I was like, oh, I don't know where I'm going next. But that's what's going on with the sock.
And you want to do your duck now?
Yeah, I can do my duck now. I don't know if this is a whip or a pip.
Okay, we were talking about that.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I think until you make the first stitch, everything is pip. Whip is when you actually start like that beginning chain or your cast on or what have you. So while you're swatching and planning and measuring and all that, I say it's still a pip.
I think that's where I landed too.
Pip, just so you know, is project and planning.
Yeah.
We totally made that up.
Yeah, made it up on the spot.
So this is your wash swatch.
This is my wash swatch. So
why are we sighing?
The swatching process on this was kind of intense because I restarted the swatch about 5 times on this situation. It turns out that I don't really knit very much back and forth. I have been primarily an in the round sort of knitter. And it turns out I have the rowing out issue. For those of you who don't know, rowing out is when you have a different gauge on knit stitches than on purl stitches. So my knit stitches tend to be larger than my purl stitches.
Is that what causes curling in general? The 2 different gauges? Is that why? Stockinette curls?
It could be, because no matter how evenly you knit, stockinette curls for everybody. There's no stockinette that doesn't curl. It could just be because of that difference. But the difference is large enough that it becomes visible in my knitting. So I kept rowing out and I was like, okay, what can I do to fix this? Because I didn't want a whole sweater with the stripes going through it. These lines. It forms horizontal lines because of the difference in stitch size between your knit rows and your purl rows. So there's a couple of things I tried to sort of manage my issue. The first thing I did was I said, all right, maybe if I change my needle size. That did not help. I did a little bit. The next thing I did was I was like, okay, I can see that my knit stitches are larger than my purl stitches. So why don't I just go up a needle size for my purls? So I had one needle that was like 4.5 millimeters in one hand and a 4.25 millimeter needle in the other. That helped a bit.
You don't think you need a bigger difference though?
I tried that too, and that helped a bit.
Okay.
But what finally really worked for me was switching to straight needles and going up another needle size. So I went up to
on both needles or now?
On both needles.
Okay.
And I got the best pardon me. I got the best looking swatch that way. And I switched to straight needles as opposed to using my circular needles. I usually use circular needles for everything kind of. And I tried 2 different sets of straight needles. I tried a longer set and a shorter set. And it made a difference in how my knitting looks. So this is the actual best swatch that I got. And as you can see, there's still some rowing out, but it's not as intense as it was. So I decided this swatch was the winner. And I blocked it by running it through the washing machine and the dryer. This is Barocco Vintage. It is a washable, dryable wool and acrylic blend. And the swatch did change a bit. It sort of pulled in vertically and expanded out a little bit horizontally, which is good to know. So I'm going to measure this one and make my plans for the sizing of the sweater based on this washed blocked swatch. Then I'm gonna knit the whole sweater with the straight needles, the shorter straight needles that I practice with. But the final solution really was to also pay close attention while I was knitting and not just relax and let my hands go. I was really thinking about making my stitches more even. So I'm gonna have to like really practice that on the whole sweater.
Pearls, man.
Pearls.
Not for me. It's a no from me, dog.
It's a no from me, dog.
Okay, so speaking of pips, I am pipping the Autumntacular Fall Explosion, which is just going to be a long cardigan that I'm doing in a riot of orange yarns. So I will be using all 3 of these. And I'm thinking maybe this solid might come in somewhere. I don't know. But, funny thing. So I have this cardigan here from a store that I was measuring. And so I want my armhole opening to actually be like quite long, a little exaggerated. So I put this on, put a stitch marker where I wanted the armhole to go to, measured, sleeve length, put a stitch marker, measured all the things in inches because I forgot my metric experiment.
Oh.
Lisa just mentioned it with her stocking and was like, well, I'll be doing all of that again.
Yeah.
I thought here I was getting ahead of the game because, as I'm winding down on my skirt, like to have the next thing in the queue all, ready to go. I mean, it just didn't even occur to me.
Yeah.
Centimeters never crossed my mind. But I really do want to see if this is going to make a difference. So I'm just going to do all my measurements again. I'm not going to like convert from inches to centimeters. Instead, I'm just going to do all the measurements again on the other side of the tape measure. Funny how they're both there, right?
It's all available.
So I'm going to have to do those measurements again. But at least I have an idea. It's starting to come together what my cardigan is going to look like. And I'm really excited about it. I I think it's going to be really cute. And November just seems like the perfect month to make this.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. But you know what? That's so interesting because usually I'm working from a pattern. So I have a map laid out before me. I see when you're working out of your own design, it's so much harder if you don't know what to do on the next thing because it stopped me from making rows.
You gotta have a plan. You have to have a plan, but like you were saying last week, you can't get ahead of yourself. So have all the steps listed, but then just focus on each step one at a time.
Yeah.
And so as you design more socks with more little elements to them instead of just like your vanilla sock, you'll start to remember, oh, I need to do this first and I need to do that first.
Yeah.
But it takes some getting used to.
It does.
But now I'm surprised how comfortable I have become with planning my own projects, because it used to be like, I'm gonna do it, but I'm gonna get everything wrong.
I don't know if this is gonna come out. We always say that. I don't know how this is gonna come out.
Mom would always ask me what I'm making, and I wouldn't say anything because I'm like, I don't know if this will come out, and I don't want to say, oh, I'm making a ball gown, and then I end up with a dish rag, So
things really went wrong.
Right? That's what I was expecting. That's how wrong I expected things to go. But it's gotten a lot better. So it's just like, okay, measure again, centimeters, I forgot. Whatevs. I'm a little more comfortable now wearing my designer hat.
Yes, indeed. You know what? I'll be sure to put a picture of the sketch so people can see what.
Oh, we don't have to include that.
Oh, goodness. Okay.
My goofy sketches.
They're adorable.
You know how you feel about your sketches, and then I'm like, oh, that's so cute. And you're like,
Made me feel weird.
It's the same thing. Like, I don't see my sketches the way you see them, and you don't see your sketches the way I see them.
But I'm going to accept that my sketches are cute.
They are. They're so cute. So we both have, well, actually she bought 2 books, one for me and one for herself. So I have a surprise new crochet book. It's got me thinking. And she found a Mosaic colorwork book.
Yes.
You want to talk about your book?
It's got me thinking too. I ordered it because I realized I had very few resources for Mosaic crochet. So I've got Mosaic Knitting by Barbara G. Walker. And it is essentially it's a stitch dictionary, plus it tells you the mechanics of mosaic knitting.
Yes, of course it does. The knitting books are like that. They just tell you all the things.
Wow, okay. Now, it's not your typical stitch dictionary that everything is in big color pictures. It's not at all. But what I like about it is that everything is charted, and there's a section to explain how to read the charts, and everything is in black and white, which I also like, because now I feel like I'm less, first of all, everything has enough contrast so I can see all of the patterns. Also, I'm not like trapped in my mind about the color pattern I saw. So I'm still free to, I'd be free to change up the colors anyway, but it bothers people sometimes. Sometimes people can't get away from the color they saw. And it's just stitches. I think there's I think I saw one skirt in here. And I was surprised when I came upon it. I was like, oh, look at that. But it's not a pattern book at all. It is just stitch patterns, and she has them divided up into sections, reversing the colors, reversing the patterns, multicolor pattern reversals, decorative bands, and shadow knitting. Child, you want to ask me that right now?
Oh, okay.
All right. I'm gonna look. This is
don't worry about it. Don't obsess.
Yeah, now I'm like, I don't know. Well, you know what shadow knitting is? It's like Well, you knit in such a way that if you look at the knitting from one angle, you see one image, and if you look at it the other way, you see another image.
Sorcery.
Indeed. But I got sort of hung up on mosaic knitting because I want to do a project with an all-over pattern, but I don't want to do stranded color work. So I think I will be doing it in mosaic color work. So we shall see. But overall, I'm super happy with the book, and there are, I don't know, a couple of hundred mosaic colorwork patterns in here. So I have plenty to work with.
So my book is called The Hooktionary by Brenda K.B. Anderson. And mine is in color. Now this has some patterns in it. And like this on the back, there's a pattern for this sweater. It also has a discussion of sticking in crochet, which I don't know if I'm ever going to do.
Go ahead, girl.
But this is like the first book I've ever seen that mentioned crochet sticking. So now I was, saying that the conversation in knitting books tends to be a little bit more in depth. So this book, it does kind of go over the different types of stitches you can use to do mosaic crochet. Did I mention it's a mosaic crochet book? Yeah, it's all mosaic crochet patterns. But so they tell you can do single crochet through the back loops, center single crochet, extended single crochet, etc., etc. You can do all these different stitches. And there's also a really good explanation of how each stitch you choose will look different. So if you do the same pattern in all of the different stitches, certain things, like some will have like diagonal lines, like you can't really do a straight line because each thing has its own little quirk, right? So there's a good explanation of that. But what I don't see is for the patterns she includes, she doesn't seem to tell you which stitch she's used.
Oh.
If this, what I'm looking at is extended single crochet, or if it's center single crochet, or what have you. And I don't know if it's divided up into sections by stitch type or what. And I find that really odd.
Is there a how to use this book section?
I'm gonna look, because, or maybe, I don't know if she did them all in one stitch pattern and then you're just free to choose to use another stitch if you like. I feel like that's a bit of an oversight. So I have to go through it a little more carefully and see if she explains in any way what the heck stitch she's used on each of these patterns. But that's not important. Here's the important thing. And so if you know anything about mosaic or tapestry crochet, you know that as you're working over the yarn that you're carrying, that yarn is always going to peek through. And it's one of the things that's kept me from really doing mosaic crochet, because those little tiny flecks of the other color just always bother me. But I have this idea. I meant to swatch it, I haven't done it yet. I was thinking, well, what if you worked in 2 different weight yarns? So the yarn that you're carrying is going to be a lighter weight, and then the yarn you're working over with is going to be the heavier weight, because that yarn will be a little bit thicker and it might give you just a little bit better coverage of the yarn you're carrying. Now this is something I just made up out my head. I don't know if it's going to cause tension issues, and so I do need to play around with it. And obviously I think it'll work better for certain types of patterns than others. If you're just doing like a repetitive element in that B color, you probably have less issues than if you're using equal amounts of both colors.
Yeah.
But we have some ultra wool in both DK weight and fingering weight, and I thought using the same yarn would probably be a good idea.
Yeah.
So I'm going to work on a swatch where I carry the fingering weight yarn and work. So my A color will be the DK, and then my B color will be the fingering weight, and see if that DK weight covers up that little bit of carried yarn any better. Because if it does, then And I might be able to make mosaic a thing.
Uh-oh.
Maybe. We'll see. But I'm gonna try it.
Oh, I'm excited to see how that's gonna work out.
I am a little too. But yeah, that's what's going on with me.
So let's just recap our books. Mine is the Mosaic Knitting by Barbara Walker.
And so we can make our thumbnail both books. Okay. Mine is the Hooktionary by Brenda K.B. Anderson. Gotta think ahead.
You sure do.
I always pull the thumbnail from the video so like we can stage it.
Brilliant, girl, brilliant.
Okay, so
we have some questions from viewers that have come in. So I'm just gonna run with it.
okay.
All right. So from Melissa V721.
When are we doing it before the yarn? Did you write that one down?
Yeah, that's. Oh no, sorry about that.
Maybe next video we'll do that. There was a technique question, and then there was just like a little Q&A thing. People sent us some questions, so we'll do the technique question in the next video because we didn't bring the question.
Oh, I know I have it. I just got it in the wrong.
Oh, you
order.
do?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I just messed up a little. Sorry about that, guys.
Never mind.
So from Marley123451, we got the question: how do you estimate how much yarn you'll need for a project?
Well, you could always just cross your fingers.
We've all done it that way.
Mm-hmm. I did a video on guesstimating your yarn usage. So basically, if you make a swatch and you measure and weigh your swatch, there's very simple, very simple math that you can do to estimate how much yarn you might need, and we will link to that video.
It's called Do Math, Darling.
But I think someone asked, what if you don't have the yarn yet?
Yes, that was also Marley.
That's harder, of course. So the Craft Yarn Council has like estimates for how much it might take to just make certain things, how much it takes to make an adult sweater, to make a child sweater, a hat. You can use that as a rough guideline. A lot of European yarns, which I think is wonderful, they will tell you on the ball band. So you'll see an outline of a garment, and they'll tell you about how many balls of yarn you need to make that garment. So if it's a scarf, you know, a couple of balls. If it's a sweater, it's more. So if you're looking at you're not going to find that probably at the craft stores, but any of the European yarns, if you're at a yarn store, might have that. Particularly, I think the Scandinavian yarns tend to do that.
Skeins Yarns also does that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that is also very helpful. Of course, you can always be guided by patterns, even if you haven't made a particular thing. You can, if you're making just a long sleeve cardigan, you can just look up a pattern for a long sleeve cardigan and see how much yarn was used for that. You want to consider the stitch pattern that's being used. So you want to look for something that's as similar to what you're planning to make as possible, and use that as a guideline. So those are some of the things you can do before you buy the yarn. But always buy extra. Always buy more than you think you need.
And you know what I do? If I want to test out a yarn, or I think, oh, this is the yarn for me, I buy one skein. And I do whatever swatching I want to do from that skein. And then I can use those swatch. And because I have a whole skein, I feel free. You know, sometimes when you're anticipating yarn chicken, we're very miserly with swatching. We've all been there. I know
a lot of my swatches ended up being absorbed into the garment.
Yeah, like right back in. But I will swatch out of that one skein, and it tells me, is this the right yarn? Do I like working with this yarn? Because you ever bought a yarn that you thought would be good and you hated touching it?
Sequin yarn is not as much fun to work with as you might think. No. It looks like a party, but it's not.
It's not. It's not a party at all. So I will make my swatch out of that, do the process where we weigh and measure the swatch after it's been blocked. And now I can see, okay, I need XYZ amount of yarn. And I still have that little bit extra. Or if it's been a long time, I can just order the same dye lot, you know, the same yarn in one dye lot.
That is a good strategy though for yarns you can expect getting more of.
Yeah.
So like for hand dye, don't try that with hand dye. Just buy one skein, because even if the dyer makes up more, it won't look exactly the same. But anything you find in the craft store, you can do that with. Just buy one skein and go back and get it. Or like your basic yarns, like your ultra wool and things like that. You can also rely on just a sample skein.
Yeah.
So hopefully that was helpful, and happy stitching.
Indeed.
And we have other questions.
We do. From Melissa. Melissa B721.
I'm trying to get to you, Melissa.
Hi. She asked, what are your favorite fiber festivals to attend? And do you make a point of attending them yearly?
New Jersey Sheep and Wool, yes.
Yes.
Which is actually, I think, called the New Jersey Sheep Breeders Association Festival, but we call it New Jersey Sheep and Wool. And yes, we do go to that every year. It's just the right size. It's not too big. It's not too small. Y'all gonna get tired of hearing me talk about Allentown Fiber Festival, because the first one was in 2019 and then the world went sideways. And so unfortunately they were not able to come back, but had they stuck around,
we'd have been going to that.
Yeah. Because again, it was a really good size, a really good selection of yarn companies represented, and I loved it.
I used to love going to Vogue Knitting. I went to the very first one that was held in New York. I was knitting just enough to coincide with that time, and I was so excited to go that when Vogue came around, all of my non-knitting coworkers knew it was coming, and they knew I'd be leaving early. Like, oh, I'm out at 3, all right? I like that one now.
Years ago, I keep talking about these defunct festivals, but what had happened was there's a crochet guild and there's a knitting guild.
Oh, yeah.
And they used to have a joint event called the Knit and Crochet Show, and we went to that once. I think it was in Connecticut that year.
No, Maine.
It was somewhere in New England. And it was wonderful because, she knits, Mom and I crochet, but not only were there classes for everyone, but such a great selection of classes. There were a lot of technique classes for crocheters, which you don't see a lot. Sometimes it's just a class on making a specific thing or what have you. But I was spoiled for choice. There were just so many classes. Unfortunately, that's another thing that went away, but I would really love to see someone, Vogue does it a little bit, but more people think about any events that have classes, making sure you have a good representation of both knitting and crochet classes. There's really just no reason to choose between the two.
And we were forgetting New Jersey Wool Walk. That's another one we go on every year.
I guess it's not all in one place, but yeah, I guess you consider that a Fiber Festival. Love it.
And it's nice because it is a store-based thing, and we happen to live in a state where there are a lot of yarn stores. We're very fortunate that way, and it's an opportunity to go around to see all the different yarn stores. Well, not even all, because we've never done all. Last year there were 22 stores.
I don't even know
in the thing.
We always talk about going to the North Jersey stores, but
after we've been going around and going around,
never quite make it.
We're quite exhausted. But every store has its own personality. It has its own selection. It has its own point of view. So it's kind of nice to kind of get a lay of the land and know, oh, well, I need X, Y, Z. I know this store will have that because that's kind of what they do. So yes, we love different yarn festivals, and we do have a couple that we go to every single year.
Yep. What is our next question?
Our next question is from, how do you think we say that?
Is it Bridget?
Bridget?
But should we just pop these on the screen so people can read them?
I'll give that a try.
Because sometimes people's... Okay, I always go off on these tangents, but just bear with me for a minute. If y'all remember the show Three's Company, one time Janet was worried about this guy that she thought, was it Cryss or Terry, one of them, was seeing. And they're sitting in the living room, the guy, and let's say it was Terry. Janet burst in and the guy hands her a card trying to calm her down. She's like, oh, look, it says right here, his name, John Smith, the rapist. Of course, it was therapist.
Oh!
And it was so funny to me because I never realized that therapist could also be read the rapist. And that is why I don't like reading people's screen names, because the letters make sense to you a certain way, but that might not be what it was supposed to say.
Ooh, okay.
So it's better to just pop these things on the screen
than
trying to read them.
Bridget here is 1625. You know who you are. Here's one. What crochet/knitting technique that you haven't tried that you'd like to learn?
Irish lace.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it is very intricate and really beautiful, but I feel like it would take a lot of effort to learn. And I don't know. I would be intimidated trying to learn it from a book. I would rather go to a class, and I just don't know like how to find a class. That's very like niche.
Yeah.
But I would love to learn Irish lace.
For me, I am a technique sampler, so I've tried a few, but my next thing that I really want to learn is I want to learn how to do make socks where you make one inside the other. And
it's not a Casablanca sock. What is it called?
No,
Dr. Zhivago. I don't know why I keep saying Casablanca.
It's another
I'm just thinking
old movie.
movies. Yeah,
it's another old movie. Yeah, they call it Dr. Zhivago socks because there's a scene in Dr. Zhivago where the nanny pulls one sock out of the other and the children are like, yay!
Although I keep hearing knitters say they just want to learn that to intimidate other knitters. Is that why you want to do it?
Actually, no.
Okay.
I you know what? I like the idea of making both socks at the same time. So I want to try a bunch of different ways to do that. And once I settle on my way, that'll just be my way. But I like the idea of, when I'm done knitting, I have 2 socks.
Gotcha.
Because, sometimes starting that second sock, I get a little side eye.
How y'all do it?
I have to start immediately.
The one time I tried to make crochet socks, as I was working on, I got like halfway through the first one. I was like, wait, I have to do this all again?
Yeah, that's what she said. I saw her sitting on the sofa and she was like, I never
even finished that first one. So.
But I think that's actually my next technique. And I want to learn how to make more crochet bottoms. So I've made a skirt. I have a little skirt series planned for myself, so I'm going to make 4 different shapes of skirts. But I want to learn how to make some pants too.
Don't get me started on pants. They're my white whale.
I'm going to start easy. Shorts. But yeah, so different garment constructions. That's actually my next
But
thing.
like nice crochet pants, not the kooky stuff you be seeing. But
okay, moving on.
I think we have one more question.
Yeah, so we have one more question from Crochet PhD. She asks,
oh, hi Jackie.
How long did you run a yarn shop?
We opened in 2018 and closed, was it 21 or 22 that we closed? I think it was 22.
Yeah.
It's about 4 years.
Yeah. And I would say a good 4 years if we include the time in the tent.
Let's not include the time in the tent.
We started our yarn store. We had the most beautiful tent yarn store. So it was like if you were in the woods somewhere and you stumbled upon a tent, and inside the tent, it's a yarn store. Just in miniature.
Okay, she is much more nostalgic about the tent than I am.
No, the tent was rough, but it was lovely.
But we had a yarn store for 4 years, and we were entirely unprepared to open a yarn store. We were just like, oh, we like yarn. Let's open a yarn store. But had there not been a panoramical, I think we would still have a yarn store. Because we were figuring it out. We were learning as we went along.
Yes. We were figuring it out.
But maybe one day we should do just like an Adventures in Yarn Store episode where we just talk about the yarn store, but it was nice for a while. It was nice while it lasted.
Yes.
But yeah, it was about 4 years.
Yeah. But I did learn, I felt like I learned a lot about all manner of things. And I think it made me a better, more confident knitter. And I think you got a huge education in fiber.
That is why I started using wool. I might still be on acrylic today if we didn't have a yarn store.
Let me tell you, I could not sell her wool. It's amazing how many people I sold wool. I could not sell wool to her. She was not about that wool life.
Of it at the craft store. I was guided largely by price, and when we were in New York, we didn't really have local yarn stores. So we didn't have the habit of shopping at yarn stores.
We didn't have access to
right until we got to New Jersey. So
I had just started exploring the yarn stores in New York when I started knitting, because I found out that there were yarn stores in New York. I didn't even know they existed.
Yeah, our yarn store has a lasting legacy.
It does. It does. But I enjoyed learning more about fibers. I enjoyed getting to try more fibers.
I learned what Ravelry was.
Yeah, she didn't even know about Ravelry. Yeah.
Nope.
Yeah.
So, I'm glad we had a yarn store. But sometimes I'm really glad we don't anymore.
It has its ups and downs.
It was a lot. It was a lot to manage. A lot of different personalities in the knitting world. It was a lot. I was better with the yarn and she was better with the people. So as a pair, it worked out quite well.
It did, because she could get, sometimes we'd get huge deliveries all at once. And she could fit, no matter, it was like a TARDIS in there. No matter how much yarn came, she could get it on the shelves.
I called it yarn Tetris because you had to just...
How'd you do that?
Get it all on the shelf.
How'd you do it? After a while, she was just like, you don't put anything on the shelf. And I was like, you know what? Okay.
I was trying to keep the yarn in a certain order, and she would just jam something on the shelf, and I'd be like, ah!
I was like, okay, we got a deal.
But yeah, so we should do a yarn store episode one of these days, but good times. But I think that's all of our questions.
Yeah, that was our last question. But I do want to say to the people that have been like doing this journey with us, thank you so much for watching all these episodes. If you just found us, thanks for hopping on board. We're having a lot of fun with this, and we hope that you are too.
And inching ever closer to 1,000 years. Sometimes I'm like, are there 1,000 people in the world? I don't know. I don't believe it anymore because we just can't get to 1,000 viewers. So if you are so inclined, if you'd like to tell someone about us, we'd really appreciate it.
And yeah,
we're just 1,000. That's all we're asking for.
Like, subscribe, share.
So I think that's it for today.
I think so.
And stay stitching.
See you next time.